welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Jose Pereira. He is a best-selling author, international speaker, and resilience coach whose work is shaped by surviving nearly 5 years of wrongful imprisonment as a member of the CITGO 6. A former CEO of CITGO Petroleum, he transforms his story into powerful lessons on leadership, faith, and purpose. He is the host of the Building Resilience podcast and Unbreakable Leaders TV show on NowMedia TV, chairman of the nonprofit Angels Helping on Earth, and an active leader in his church ministry. Through his books, From Hero to Villain, an Amazon #1 bestseller, and his most recent book, Unbreakable, he inspires audiences worldwide to live and lead with an unbreakable spirit. It is my absolute honor to welcome Jose Pereira.
Thank you, Courtney, for having me. By the way, let me tell you something. You mentioned that the book is Amazon #1. This was the first edition. I published the second edition by Christmas, and yesterday became again Amazon bestseller. And today appeared to be, because it appeared in the Spanish version as an Amazon bestseller in the Spanish community here in the US. But today appeared in the second place in Spanish worldwide, in all the world, worldwide. So I got surprised because the #1 is the David Copperfield of Mark Twain. In my mind, is appearing in the second one. So it really got surprising.
Well, congratulations on that. And I have your other book here, Unbreakable, which you just released this year in 2025. And I really do. I want to congratulate you on this. We are certainly going to get into this particular book itself. But Jose, I would love for you to begin with an introduction and a background of yourself.
Well, thank you for having me here. The people that are part of the audience of Courtney, that I'm very honored to she invited me to be in this show. I'm Venezuelan born. I came here to the US like 15 years ago. But my story, I didn't come like a normal immigrant, because my story is that I started in the oil and gas back in the 80s, very young. I went through the high school, university, and boom, directly to the oil and gas. And in the 80s, the oil and gas in Venezuela was big. It was big because Venezuela is an oil and gas country. And PDVSA, my former company, where I worked there more than 30 years, was the 5th biggest company of the world. And the company that belongs to PDVSA, that is the US based, is CITGO Petroleum. People know it because there are a lot of gas stations all over the US. CITGO has more than 6,000 gas stations. So 15 years ago, I was transferred here to the US to do an assignation at CITGO. So I came like an international expat, not like a normal immigrant. And I continued my career, and I finished being the CEO of the company here in the US. So that happened in 2017. So for me, it was a kind of a big deal because, being an immigrant, and CITGO is the 3rd biggest refinery in the Gulf and the 6th in all the US, was a big deal. It was a big deal for me. But everything has, so the ups and downs, because at that moment, and the people maybe that are not so familiar that what happened in that time, but maybe are following the news right now, that the Trump administration is having a lot of things with the Venezuelan regime right now. And in 2017, when I became the CEO of CITGO, was during the first Trump administration. So it was the same thing that is happening today, all this fight between the two countries. And I was working here in the middle of that situation, and I decided to get retired. Because by that time I already had almost 35 years in the company. And my decision was to get retired. But things happened because being in my retirement mode, it came November 2017. 2 days after was coming the Thanksgiving, and I received a call, and I was invited to go to make a presentation to Venezuela 2 days after, and I didn't see nothing wrong because it was part of my normal core of business. I flew to Venezuela with my 5 top executives, and it became to be an ambush. It began to be an ambush because in the middle of the presentation, it came the counter-military police of that country. They captured us. They accused us to be American spies, and we were captured and stayed almost 5 years kidnapped in Venezuela. So our negotiation to get us released took almost 5 years. It was a hard negotiation because we were caught in the middle of the geopolitical situation that was happening between the U.S. and Venezuela. And unfortunately, this is something that you don't have no control, because the only way is that two countries getting some agreement, because this is a phenomenon that they call the hostage diplomacy. It's very common in those type of countries. Countries like Iran, China, Russia, they apply very commonly. They take high-stake people from a nationality that they have some issue, and they use you like a political pawn. And that's what they did with us. They use us as a political pawn to negotiate some leverage, some things they were asking for the U.S. And that's why the negotiation takes so long, because it's hard to get an agreement. And I could come back 3 years ago through a prisoner swap. So the agreement, the final agreement was they swapped us with the 2 nephews of Maduro that were in a jail in Florida, by the way. They were in Florida. So these guys were released from Florida, and we were swapping a Caribbean island, movie style. We landed in a Caribbean island, and then the 2 planes came, and we swapped, and that's how I could come back. That's, long story short, that's what happened.
Wow, Jose, I mean, when we were talking even before this conversation, your story is really one of resilience, of strength and determination. And we are certainly going to get more into that part of your story, of your career. But I would love to first start off, because what I'm about to ask you, it really highlights, I think, the sacrifice behind when one chooses to go a certain career route, whether that's even the impact that it could have on a family, the sacrifice of not only the individual that is taking these high powered positions, but then also their family. And so my question for you is, if you could just walk us through the journey, both professionally through your career, but then also personally, the sacrifices that were maybe made leading up to the position of you holding CEO of CITGO Petroleum.
Well, that's a very good question, because and that is exactly part of what today is my coaching program, because my motto is you need to have a perfect balance between your business success and your personal life. What happened, Courtney, that, and you're so right, I did this career with a lot of success, but I put my family in jeopardy. My wife, I always say it, and I'm not shy saying it, that I never had time for her. Never had time for my kids. I had 3 kids. Let me tell you this. I have 3 kids, and the eldest one, when he was born, I was a supervisor. So I had time to spend with him. As I mentioned I spent years going to Orlando every year to go to the parks and that stuff. Then my second son, more or less the same. But my daughter, that she's the third, she was born like 10 years after. By that time, I already was in a top position. I never had time for her. Never, 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 never. I literally didn't see her in a year because I was always traveling. So this is something that I tell to the people today, that don't sacrifice your personal life. You need to have a balance in your life, because this is something that the people, and it's very typical. And here in the US, it's very typical that people want to, work hard because want to be successful, to want to climb the corporate ladder, and that's okay. I'm not saying that is bad, but you need to have a balance. You need to have a balance, because if you really want to be successful, you need to have a balance in your business and in your personal life. If you don't have that balance, you are not a successful guy. You can be a successful in your career, but not in your life. And this is something that for me is very, very important, and it is today for me is key. And part of my coaching, that is one of the things that I emphasize, that people need to have a balance in their life.
That's such good advice, because I always talk about it on this podcast of almost a work life harmony, if you will, of being able to juggle, your life in general, but then also one's career. And it's definitely tough, because as you mentioned, here in the United States, like, what is the definition of success? And it's different for obviously so many people, but it really is, it's climbing the ladder. I know when I was growing up, that was exactly what my mindset was. Jose, was just climb, climb, climb. And you get to a certain point in life where I think it's true reflection that once you hit certain points of your career, whatever it may be, but you're able to reflect on what is meaningful to you and what brings you that sense of like happiness in life, like true fulfillment. And so I just love that you mentioned that. And my next question for you is, when you were already in that position, you were named CEO of CITGO Petroleum. Once you're at that level, how did your definition of success change? Because you're at the top now, Jose. So, what was just your mindset and your perspective once you held that position, and what success meant?
Well, this is a very good question, because again, today I compare my life before and after. One of the biggest challenges that when you go to a position like this, and for me even more, because as I said, I came here like a immigrant, and climbing to the top of the company, that 95% of the employees were Americans. So it was like an extra challenge for me, because I'm not only the CEO, I'm a CEO that are not from this country, and they need to accept me and recognize, because I was the guy that had the capability to be there. But there comes sometimes that you put so much effort in that, and sometimes you sacrifice things that are more important. For example, you begin to get a lot of ego. A lot of ego, a lot of self-centered in yourself. And this is something that, again, is part of today in part of my coaching program. I try to ask the people to reflect how they are doing their job, how they're connecting with the employees. Because once that you get at that level, you can lose the sense of the contact with the people. And it's very common that you get surrounded with your team, 5 to 10 people, and that's it. And that's it. You lose the contact with what is going in your company. And you're only relying on what these people are saying to you. I'm not saying that you don't have to have the confidence with your team, but you need to have the contact with the people. Today, one of the things that I recommend to any person that is really wanted to make a change in their leadership is have a personal contact with your employees. Have a meeting that you can talk directly to them. Doing morning walking in your office is so key. I did it during my career. That I came very early to the building, and I did not walk all the building, saying hello to the people, and you will get surprised how the people really love that you can come and talk with them. Try to know your employee. Maybe you're a bigger company, but you can take the time. You can take the time to have that connection and treat the people as like they are people. One of the things, Courtney, that for me is key, and everything that I'm saying today is because I went through that situation. During my 5 years of captivity, believe me, I had time to reflect a lot. Let me picture you this. I was in the dungeon. Let me show you in the book. If you see this building, this was the dungeon where we were captured. Okay, let me put it here. Okay, let me put it. Okay, this was the dungeon, and these were the guards. Okay, this dungeon is called El Helicoide. If you Google it, El Helicoide is one of the most infamous dungeons of Latin America, and I was there with all the political prisoners of Venezuela. So I was not in a normal prison. It was a prison for political prisoners. In that prison were with me more than 500 political prisoners. Who are these guys? Generals, journalists, human rights advocates, religious leaders, politicians, not normal people, high state people. But you know what connected us, all of us? That all of us was trying to survive. So there were no suits, there were no titles. We were simple human beings trying to survive. And there where you get the real connection, because you have the opportunity to know the person that who really they are. Most of these people, I used to see them in the TV, and now they're with me. And when you know them in person, and you know their families, their kids, so you have a different perspective. So if you mirror this in your business, it's the same. If you are the CEO of the company, but if you try to have the personal connection and you know the person like they are persons. For example, I was captured with my 5 vice presidents. These guys were not my friends. I didn't know their story. We learned about us when we were there during those years. We had the opportunity to deeply have the knowing who each us was and all the family. And today we are connected. We became friends, So this is something that I recommend to anybody. Try to connect with a person from the human side.
Jose, excellent advice. I really do. I want to kind of pick this apart. When you were first speaking about rising to these very high powered positions, and you were talking about sometimes losing yourself in the sense of ego, I feel that's where family comes in as far as that support system to always help you remain grounded in life. And I talk about having a support system. It does not have to be some extensive support system. It could sometimes just be 1 or 2 people in your life, but that you always remember where you came from, and that you're right, the humble beginnings for some people as they do climb the ladder, but how important it is, and you said this too, but treating everybody equally, how you would start your mornings just walking the building, different titles, different on the hierarchy, so to speak, but that everybody really is an individual at the end of the day. And I speak about this a lot, how getting to know people and their story, how important that is. And today where we are all trying to multitask, but how important it is to really take time and the effort to appreciate one's story, where they came from, what their perspective is. And that's why I love literally having people on this podcast, but appreciating humanity. And we sometimes have to just stop the pace, because you're right. It's so fast paced today, and we're always on to the next thing. I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least it's like, go, 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 right? But fantastic advice that you certainly provide others in your coaching program. And as we transition, I would love to begin this next part of the conversation with an excerpt from your book, Unbreakable. But it begins with, quote, "Being taken hostage in a high stakes diplomatic conflict isn't something you train for, But most tragedies in life don't give you time to prepare. One moment, everything is normal. The next, it's chaos. And so I just want to open up this conversation to allow you to speak about just obviously, this is a moment you'll never forget, but the whole experience and then leading up to the moment that you were set free.
Let me tell you something, Courtney. That is, wow, your questions are very spot on. I love it. One of the things that I want your audience to picture is that the first thing is that I always talk about this. Adversity never announced. Nobody's prepared for that. Even my particular case, we were 6 top executives of our oil company with more than 30 years each of us. I did a lot of training during my career in risk mitigation, damage control, explosions, whatever that you got kind of trained to navigate extreme situation, because that is what the oil and gas is a risky business. But I was not trained for what I went through. So that training for me was nothing when this happened. That's what happened in your life, that you can have a preparation for life, but nobody's trained for when something extreme is coming to your life. Like, for example, the day you receive a call, because this is another thing. Normally, the things come with a call. You receive the call from the doctor giving you your result of your medical test. You receive a call from a lawyer that you're getting divorced, or a lawyer that you have been bankrupt. So, or you receive a call from a policeman that there was a car accident. Always is a phone call. When that moment comes, is where you will realize that your life can change like this in a moment. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was picture this. I was a guy that was in the pinnacle of my career. 30 plus year successful career, finalizing in the top of the top, because I could not climb. The only thing was going to be part of the shareholders. Okay, but so I'm top in the top with all the toys that come with that position. A car with a driver, airplane, to go wherever I wanted, a restaurant bringing me the food to my office, all that luxuries that you can imagine, traveling the world in all over, everything. And one day, I'm in the middle of a dungeon. No, I didn't have. I was in a suit when they detained me. I had 2 days without changing my clothes, all sweaty, and starving. Didn't know what was going on, and we were isolated. We were separated at 6. So I was placed in a place they call the submarine. Doesn't have window. There is no running water. There is no fresh air, and there was no food. I stayed days without food. So imagine how the things changed dramatically to me in a minute. You can really go crazy. You can really go crazy. And believe me, I began to have a lot of thinkings about what was going, and I could not believe what was going, because this is the other thing. You are not prepared. And the first reaction is deny it. This is not happening to me. This is not real. This is a dream. This is not happening. But you can stay there. You can stay there. So here's where the situation changed. When you decided to accept what you're going and you face it. And you say, okay, this is my new reality. Let's see how I'm going to handle this. And then comes the miracle, because not only you begin to change your mindset, it can take days, months, or years. It's up to you. But here now comes the circle of support, because after months being isolated, they decided to put us the 6 together. as I mentioned, we were not friends. I didn't know the story of these guys. And we discovered that the six of us not only had 30 plus year career, we had 30 plus year married, each of us. 30 plus year, that's six. What is the probability the six guys that were picked randomly, all of us had more than 30 years married? That was not a coincidence. There's where God begins to appear. Mm. There is where God begins to appear, because now we have a lot of commonalities, because with the six had families, had kids, had grandsons. So we had reasons to survive. And it was not one guy that was single and the other was three divorced. No, six guys with long-term families, with kids, and some of us with grandkids. We had reasons to survive. And that makes you the total mindset change, because now you're having that circle of support. So this is very important. I always mention to the person, if you're having anything in your life, don't navigate it alone. Look for that circle of support, whoever it is.
Wow. You know, Jose, I mean, just as you speak about that, obviously can't even imagine what was going through your mind when you're taken hostage. You don't know when it's going to end. And as you mentioned, I mean, just all those six individuals coming together and having something to share in common. I just can't even imagine this, but that was a positive. That was like the silver lining of being able to connect as human beings and to hold on to a sense of hope. And that kind of leads me to my next question. But there you are. You don't know when you're actually going to get out. Like, how did you find hope to hold on, knowing that there is going to be one day that I'm set free? Where did you find the hope?
Well, this is very important because, as I mentioned to your audience, the first day we were separated. I was put in a solitary confinement, and the other guys in another place. I didn't know where they were. I didn't even know if they were alive or not. I didn't know absolutely nothing about them, because one of the things this guy does is they never say nothing to you. Everything is totally surprise. This is a psychological way to torture you, you know? So you were always guessing what was going on. So one day around the 10th month, one of the guards come into my place and said, dress up that you're going to go to a visit. They didn't tell me who was coming. So they put me in a room. I'm in the room waiting that somebody comes. And when the door opened, it was my wife. It was my wife. My wife took the risk to travel from here to Houston to Venezuela to visit me. I got surprised, happy, and scared at the same time. Happy because I saw her, but scared. And I told her, what are you doing here? So I was really scared because I knew that these guys were very, very bad guys. And she told me that the things were okay. And that's where the first time I heard that we're having negotiation between the U.S. and Venezuela. So there was having negotiation. The negotiations were not going very well. In fact, they began to go in a very bad way. And at some point, the two ambassadors were recalled. But now I know there are negotiations. And she came with a message, because she came with a message that from the U.S. government, and at the same time, she was going to take the message of what was that this guy wanted to do, what was the request for releases. It took years, but now I begin to have something that is called the hope, because now I have the hope that they know that my family is working hard. When we got together, the six of us, after 1 year, I saw that all of us were alive. We were in really very bad shape. By that time, already had lost 100 pounds. And these guys, we were starving. We were starving. Literally, we were starving. Not only starving, we were having a lot of health issues. By that moment, I already had scabies. I already had bronchitis. I had pneumonia. After that, I suffered COVID 2 times. So we went through a lot of health issues. I suffered a heart attack. So we went through a lot of health issues. But now we're together. And being together, we call it like the survivor plan. Because we were 6 guys with a career successful, the 6 of us. Yeah. And we create this plan. It was funny because at the beginning, it was like being in a board meeting, trying to put the brains, too much brains, too much brains in the room, It was funny. We're too much brains. But what we did, we create this survivor plan, and then we begin to do things that is everything I'm talking today. Today I use it in my coaching program. Okay. One of the things that I recommend to anybody that is in a leadership position is identify the things that you can control and the things that you cannot control. Because it's crazy how the people want to control things that are not under their control. And it's exhausting, it's depressing, and it drives to burnout, and you will never control the situation. So take care of the thing that you really can control. So what happened to us? We tried to influence our family, how they had to manage our release. It's crazy. We cannot control that. So what we decided at the end, take care of ourselves. Take care to be sane in body, soul, and spirit. So what we did, one of my guys, he was a marathon runner. He's still running marathon today. So he began to train us. He began to prepare a training to like we were going to run a marathon. Another guy, he was the PR guy of the company. He was in charge of all the communications. One of my guys, he was very Christian. He began to read the Bible. He was like the pastor of the group. One of the guy, he was a tank expert. And we didn't have running water. We had now a tank. He was in charge of handling the water tank. So everybody began to handle their discipline. And I was like the coordinator of the group. Mm-hmm. And it worked. We stayed the rest of the years working in a daily basis, in a daily routine, doing stuff. By that moment, we already were allowed to read. And I began to smuggle letters with my wife because we were receiving now food, because one of the concessions they did is that because we were starving, there was lack of food at the time, because the people that doesn't know, 2017 was when Trump imposed the first sanctions to Venezuela. And now we're in 2018, 1 year after, and the country has having issues with food, gasoline, and medicine. And it was affecting us too. So this guy, they approved their family giving to provide us the food. And my family, the decision that took is that my eldest son, he moved to Colombia, and he began to provide me the food from Colombia to Venezuela. And somebody in Venezuela cooked the food and delivered it to the prison. And he did it during three times in the week. So when I was returning the trash cans, I began to smuggle letters in the double bottom of the cans. Inside, I put the letters, and that was very effective because I could begin to communicate with my wife, because I didn't have too much communication with her. So now we're writing letters and receiving letters from her, and we compiled almost 1,000 letters. Almost 1,000 letters. And those letters became the book. This book is based on those letters. So this book is based on those 1,000 letters. I didn't pick that 1,000 because maybe I write 5 books. I pick up the most representative letters that could tell the story where we went through. And that's how we decided to survive. So long story short, I'm again, part of my coaching program and part of my speech today, I talk about the 5 pillars. And I'm going to name it here. The first pillar is positive mindset. No matter where you're going, positive mindset. Circle of support. circle of support, taking care of you of your mental, physical health, taking care of your spirituality. This is very important, taking care of your spirituality. And when you put this together, you can do anything in your life. Because, for example, taking care of the spirituality, this is something that, again, in my coaching, I tell the people, you have to go back to God. You cannot do nothing without Him. And this is something that I discovered, that anything that you can do in your life, and today everything that I do intentionally, because it's not because of me, it's because of Him. Everything I do is for the glory of God. And this is something that the people don't think how that is important in a business. If you have that connection, that will boost your business, because now you're connected to the essence of everything. Because who really multiply is God, not you. It's Him. It's Him.
True. That is so true. When you speak about spirituality and how important that is, I've always said this, but no matter like what you believe in, universe, force, God, whatever it is, but there's something very powerful that when you're walking through that storm, that it's knowing that you're not alone and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there is a higher power, whatever you believe in. Like in my spirituality, it's God. And there has certainly been, I mean, storms, certainly not to this capacity. I don't want to, compare that whatsoever. But I say this because as you go through storms, you think to yourself, is this ever going to end? But the lessons that I've even learned through life is that good times as well as bad times are temporary. And then listening to your story, this is just kind of like another segment of what I wanted to speak about, but your story is so incredibly powerful. As you mentioned, when all 6 individuals came together for that survival guide, like where each were, whether it was, mentally, physically, but everybody played a part in helping establish that hope. And I think that's powerful for today in this world that we live in, that it's so important to come together
Mm-hmm.
and to appreciate. I mean, 6 individuals, certainly there was a lot of similarities, but I'm sure there was, of course, differences. But how you guys came together and had that sense of hope to pull you through what was extremely uncertain, not knowing day to day what was happening. And then, of course, as you mentioned too, like your wife giving you that sense of hope when you saw her after those 10 months. I mean, that is unbelievable just to hold on to that. What an incredibly powerful story. And my question is, as you are released and you are set free at this point, but how did your perspective on life change? What really changed on your perspective of how you were going to move forward once kind of the dust settled and you're back at home? What did you perceive life to be?
Well, the question is complex, and let me try to organize the ideas, because the first thing is that during those years, after 1 year that we were put together and we began to do this survivor plan, that days begin to go very fast, because we were like hamster in a cage doing things all day long, all day long, all day long. Reading, for example, I have never had the opportunity to read so much book in my life like I did in that moment. So for my intellectually, I read books that I have never ever have read in my life, and I never had time to read. So I took the time to read and to exchange a lot, because we were now exchanging a lot. Doing biblical studies. We did a lot of biblical studies there. And by the way, one of our colleagues at Jorge, that is the marathon runner, he praised Buddhism. So he was talking about Buddha and all this stuff and all the chakras and we did meditation with him. So we had the opportunity to exchange a lot on the spiritual side. And so now you are having a growth, a personal and a spiritual growth. I always joke that that became like a big retreat. So now during the years, we were prepared for the long run. We were preparing us for the long run. It took years. But we were now having a sense of peace. Even we were in that dark place, we were having peace. And believe me, I began to sleep like a baby, because now you have that confidence that God is with you. And you mentioned it. We were in the dark place, we were in the desert, we were in the valley, but we knew that we were protected by God. And you could feel it. You could really feel it. And that gives you a boost in your spiritual growth. So when the day they released us, as I said, we came through a prisoner swap. We landed here in San Antonio in a military base called Army Brooks. We stayed there 2 weeks in a decompression program. That is the program that they do for the missing in action in the prisoner of war. So we went through that program. And my wife had the opportunity to be with me. After I came back, when the first day I came to my house, I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? You know, I didn't know what to do with my life. I really didn't know what to do with my life. So 1 month after, I was invited to go to Washington, and I took the opportunity to go for two reasons: to go and give thanks to all the people that work hard to bring us back, congressmen, journalists, many people. It was a very complex negotiation, our case, very complex. And I wanted to say thanks to these people. But at the same time, by that time, my family had created, with other 20 families, a movement called the Bring Our Family Home campaign, that today is big. This flag that you see here is a hosted and wrongfully detained flag that was created by the campaign, and today is a national federal flag. It's approved by the Congress, okay? So I flew to go and say thanks to the Bring Our Family Home campaign and all the foundations that work in that area, that today I'm proudly connected to them. So when I had the opportunity to meet all these families that had gone through the same situation that my family in other countries, like I mentioned, in Russia, in China, in Afghanistan, in North Korea, Cuba, all these countries, they do the same thing, because this is like a copy-paste technique. This is a business model that they use to take people. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity to meet families and former hostages, people that had been hostage in other countries, and you create a connection. And now many of these families saw me like a beacon of hope for them, because they were having people taken in other countries, and they saw me with so much positivity. And there's where I decided to create this coaching program, because I said, I can use this for the good. I can use my leadership experience and now my survivor experience and create a program for the good. And that's how I created the coaching program. And I got invited to speak. I did my first speech in the Congress. I was invited to talk in the Congress. And I was invited to talk in the UN. And when I began to speak in my previous life, I did talking in the boardrooms. I never did talking to the public, but I was used to talk. And that's how my speaking came. I began to do conference, and I decided to write a book. And now I came to be a coach, a speaker, and an author. And then came my podcast, and then one day, one guy, a producer of that a TV channel, said, "Hi, I want you to come to be," and now I'm a TV host, and I now started also my nonprofit. So everything was one thing driving to the other, but everything came because of God, because I'm following His calling. I'm following His calling, and He's using me like a vessel. That's the way I perceive the life today. So when you tell me how I perceive the life today, totally different than the before. I everything that I do today is very intentional, because I'm doing it because it's a calling and I found his calling. I'm doing it because I truly believe that he decided to use my testimony that I went through that I can help others. And this became like my ministry. So many people said, "Oh, you should become a pastor." No, I don't want to be a pastor. And this is the way I believe that I can help people. I do church service. I'm very connected to my church today, and I'm very, very connected to my church. And I attend several services. We have a service called Golden Heart, where we take care of the senior citizens. We have a service called the Art of Giving, where we do food pantry drives. And I attend a meeting every week here in my house called the Grupo Comida, where we attend group. And I'm going to have this weekend toy donation here in my house for the kids of the community. So this is the way I decided to use my life today. Totally changed. But that's what God does. It transforms you.
What a powerful message to first begin. I listened to your story and how your perspective as you get out and how you still maintain such a positive mindset, a positive outlook, regardless of what you had gone through. I mean, that's powerful in itself. I don't think I would have had, even though I'm, plenty of positivity over here, I don't know how I would have had that strength to still
No,
maintain.
that's not true. Let me tell you to you and to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has inside that unbreakable spirit. That's why my book is called Unbreakable. So the name Unbreakable comes because of that. Because let me tell you this story why I came with Unbreakable. 1 month before I was captured, 1 month before. So I was captured in November 2017. So October 2017, I flew to Caracas 1 month before to ask to my boss to approve my retirement. So I was in the process of getting retired. When I was coming back to Houston in the plane, I received a call. And it was the lady that handles the PR asking me that the next day there were going to be the closing of a summit the company was doing, and they wanted me to go to close it because by the time I already was the CEO of the company. So I attended the next day the summit, and I asked her who was going to close the summit because the company always in the closing brought a speaker, a motivational speaker. And they brought a guy called Captain Phillips. You know, the movie that Tom Hanks, Captain Phillips. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the real Captain Phillips, the real guy. So he was the speaker. And he was speaking, I remember his speech was navigating the turbulent waters. So he was talking about his story having held hostage by the Somali pirates. And when that guy came down to sit with me, I told him, "Hey, my guy, what story do you have? I really don't think I could make it." And he told me this: everybody has inside an unbreakable spirit that is connected with God, but you need to unleash it. I didn't know why the guy told me that. And I got, why this guy told me this? 1 month after I was captured. And those words made me survive. Because today I truly believe everybody has the unbreakable spirit inside. You don't know it, but you only need to is unleash it. But you have it inside because you're a creature of God. So we're created at the image of God. So we have the force, we have the power. What you have to do is unleash it. So you say, "I don't know how we'll do it." You will do it. You will do it. Believe me that you will do it. You don't know it, but you will do it.
Jose, thank you so much. My gosh. I mean, just to think of how much hope, though, that you provide others through your story. That's why I firmly believe that storytelling, allowing others into our lives of what we experience, the ups and the downs. Even on this podcast, a lot of the times I'll get questions of, is this all positivity? But I really do. I'm such a firm believer of being so realistic of life, of how what really connects us all is going through the challenges in life, the issues that sometimes arise that are completely unexpected, that throws your life off, but how we are able to come back and to, perhaps by sharing our story, inspire others or encourage others. And that has 100% of what you just did, even in what I disclosed to you of like, how could I actually even have a positive mindset after such unbelievable incident that has occurred? But you give others so much hope in their lives just through your powerful story. And there's another excerpt that kind of leads into your coaching program that I would love to read, because I think it's a very powerful excerpt. But Unbreakable isn't about being invincible. It's about building a leadership foundation that holds even when everything else feels like it's falling apart. And what I love about your book is that you talk about how you have gone through the fire and now you are here to give back to others, to help them as they walk through perhaps their own fires in life. And so I just wanted to kind of open this conversation for you to share maybe just your experience now as a coach.
Well, that is exactly what I'm doing today, because people doesn't know that when the people are in front of a company as a CEO of a business owner, the people only see the successful side of the person. Yeah. But sometimes the person is successful, but his personal life maybe is unfortunately miserable. So you create like a mask. Like a mask, you're smiling, you're a successful guy, but in your interior, or when you're alone. So that's why some people want to stay 20 hours in an office, because they don't want to go to their home. When they go to their home, the family is broken. So this is that reflection. The first thing that I try to do when I begin to work with a client is do like an auditing. How is his life? How is his life if with his family, and how is his life with their employees? Because there is two directions: the communication with your family and the communication with your employee. And believe me, normally these two communications are broken. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that you have to do is fix it. Fix it. Nothing that I do is complex, because it's based on common sense. And what I do is try to walk them through. My program is a 3-month program. And what I try to do is that they reflect. They can see where their errors are. They can see the things they can improve. And I navigate them through that. And why? Because I experienced it. Because one of the things that my coaching has, that this is not a woo-woo coaching program. This is based on the things that I really, really live, and it worked. And it worked for me, and if it can work for me, it can work for anybody. What you need to have is the intention to make the change. So if you are hearing this and you really want to make that change, and again, when the things happen, you don't have to be a hostage like me. But sometimes you can be a hostage of what you believe, the hostage, the situation where you're going through. And it can be even worse to be a physical hostage. When you're a mental hostage, sometimes it's even worse to be a physical hostage. And this is the way I try to do this. And normally, let me tell you, I have been very grateful for me knowing that people have restored their families, have restored their life. Marriage that have been broken now have been fixing. So this is a personal joy, not only the business side. It's a very personal joy for me.
That's absolutely wonderful to hear. And as you talk about, I think what's so interesting, because just my perception, I thought it was more so just about perhaps career. But as you mentioned, it's looking at the whole person of every aspect of life and
Yes.
understanding how everything comes together and how you do. Sometimes you have to heal first in different parts of your life to become whole again. And the fact that you take the time to understand the individual and to develop them and to be their support system. I mean, that is exactly what a coach, I think of even in the context of sport. Why do we have coaches in sport? It's to navigate, the challenging times. It's to navigate success and how to handle success, kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation of
Mhm.
not developing an ego, but maintaining, being grounded. And so
Mhm.
I think a coach is definitely needed in different aspects of your life. And I just love how you mentioned that. And Jose, I mean, this conversation has been just full of hope. That's the word that comes to my mind, is how you offer others so much hope through your powerful story of, number one, beginning your journey and achieving such immense success, but then also going through such an incredible storm in life, but still maintaining such a positive outlook of life. And look how you are helping so many people, whether it's nonprofits, television, podcasts now, but really helping them work through and understand the value. It comes to mind is just resilience, being resilient, how to overcome adversity. So,
Mhm.
Jose, if you could provide our listeners just a positive message or a positive quote, and if you could elaborate on how that quote or message even relates to your life.
Let me tell you a small story that happened to me after years. As I said, now we have a very powerful personal and spiritual growth. We were in a very personal and spiritual capacity. I remember about the last year, one day we received a visit. As I said, the visits were always surprising. We received a visit, and it was the ambassador Roger Carton, that he was running the special presidential office for hosted affairs. He was the guy who released that finally. So he had the opportunity to have a visit with us 1 year before we were released. And that day, he announced that he was going to have direct negotiations, face to face. First time, they're going to have face to face negotiations. When he was coming back, I told him, Ambassador, I know we're gone. I don't know when, but I know we're gone. So the day after, I told my wife, because by that time they were giving me more phone calls, because now the relation they were trying to figure out what negotiation was going to be. So they relaxed our relation. So now we're having phone calls. I was talking to my wife almost every day. So I called my wife the next day, and I told her how the visit of the ambassador went. And I told her, Mommy, tell Edgar was the guy that took care of my logistics. Tell Edgar that bring me this weekend a luggage. What? Yeah, as a carry-on luggage. Why? Because I want to be prepared when I'm going to be gone. So that Saturday, that guy brought me a luggage as a carry-on, this carry-on luggage. And I told her to bring it full with some clothes to be prepared to go. I put the luggage in the corner. I put the luggage in the corner of my cell. Every morning when I woke up, I saw the luggage and said, be prepared, my friend, that we're gone. And I talked to that luggage during 1 year. And 1 year they opened the door and I came with that luggage. So today I have a speech that talks about the luggage metaphor, because that luggage is your dreams. Sometimes you carry on a heavy baggage in your shoulder. Give the baggage to God, but carry your dreams. That carry on is your dreams. Carry her all over. Pursue your dreams. Carry with you. Pursue your dreams, and never give up. So that's the final message. Never give up. Pursue your dream. Go for it. Pray for it. Have faith for it, and never give up, and you will achieve your dreams.
Jose, I love that. Never give up and pursue those dreams. That's what life is about, right? Just going for things and just to be able to appreciate the journey and leading up to those dreams. I think about that a lot, of how sometimes you just want to get to the destination of something, but then also it's about enjoying the journey in between and how you are developing as a person and how you look at adversity. I think that's what really demonstrates the character of an individual, of being able to, like you said, even that positive mindset. You made me, I'm always going to think about that, Jose, is I can't even imagine. And you're like, no, you can, you are going to be positive. But it really is the power of one's mindset and how powerful a mind is to be able to think that you can manage through something, even through very dark storms that someone may experience in their own lives, but to be able to maintain a positive attitude and a positive outlook, and that you really can achieve your dreams in life. And like you said, never, ever quit. So what a fantastic message, Jose. I want to acknowledge to your family of how incredibly strong and holding on to that sense of hope during those very difficult times when you were held hostage. I just want to recognize your family, because I cannot even imagine what they were going through to support you through those very difficult times. So I just wanted to mention that and maybe speak about your family as we
Oh,
close
well,
out.
my wife, I fight with her every day because I really I want her to write her book. I encourage her to write her story, because the story of her can inspire a lot of women. Because you don't have to have gone to a situation like this, but how many women doesn't go through challenging moments in their life? And you women are really more stronger than we, the guys. I cannot imagine. I always tell her, I cannot imagine if the situation would be she held hostage and I tried to. Maybe I could not make it, but she made it. She was strong. As I said, she created with other families the Bring Your Family Home campaign. That campaign today exists, is taking care of hostage here in the U.S. And it became a movement. And with all the things that are happening, when I had the opportunity to meet many people, and of course, Mervis, my wife's name is Mervis, it's because of her, because she took the risk, took the courage, and maintained the sanity, and maintained the family together. So yeah, of course. One of the things that I really will encourage her, that in 2026, write her book. It even has a name. The book is going to be called Putting Together Back the Broken Pieces, something like that, because it's like something is broken and you try to put it back. But she's going to do it. Maybe in 2026, you're going to see the book of her.
That is a beautiful message. And, Jose, I genuinely want to thank you. It was truly an honor for you to come onto this podcast and to share your story. I just think of the word hope now when I think of your story and how you have that positive mindset in life. So thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you. If anybody wants to contact me, my webpage is joseconnect.com. Very easy. joseconnect.com. You can find me there, and anybody that wants to connect with me, you can go through there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose.